Hey guys, it's Zach back here with another episode of Clutch Crew Sports. Today I'm joined by Connor and Nathan, and this is going to be our Friday weekly show where we bring you guys our predictions for the weekend's NFL and college games, and that's what we're going to be doing today, as well as taking a look at our Clutch Crew Sports Fantasy Football League's Week 2 matchups as I am playing Paul, who had a really good week last week. Eric's playing Mark, who won but didn't have the best game last week. Connor's playing Alan, who lost last week, but he had a high point total. And then the number one point performer last week, Red Squad, is playing Nathan. So that's going to be a big matchup, too. So yeah, but once the season starts going, you guys we'll talk about the standings more because right now it's really too early. But we're gonna show you guys our teams and talk about some fantasy players that we expect to do very good for us next week. So with that being said, though, let's get started on our college football talk for this week, week 3 of college football, and it's kind of similar to last week in that there's a lot of cupcakes being played by top 25 teams. There are a couple interesting games that we'll get to, but still a lot of high point spreads, not so much 50-point spreads or big 40-point spreads in this, but there are a couple big ones. And the Friday night game here, guys, Washington State at Houston. Washington State favored by 8.5 to win, and we all have Washington State. Washington State's offense is just so dynamic that they're going to put up a ton of points. They are playing Houston though, and Houston is not like a cupcake opponent by any means. They're a top team in the American Conference, and I think Washington State though is going to, even though they're on the road, I think they're going to win by at least 10 in this game. So, and I could see it being even more than 10. I could see it being like 20, 24. You guys on the same page, or you guys think it's gonna be a closer one?
I don't think it's going to be a win by. I think I'm kind of on the same page as you. I think they're going to win by around 10. Like, I don't think it's going to be a 20-point victory for Washington State, but I mean, because I did kind of lean towards picking Houston, like just against the spread, but I obviously think Washington State's going to win the game, but in terms of the spread, I was thinking about picking Houston, but I'm pretty confident that Washington State could win by over 8.5 in this game.
Nate, you on the same page too, or?
I think Nate, he might be going.
Yeah, let me check the.
He's still in the call.
Let me check my phone. We're experiencing technical difficulties there.
You can just keep going.
Yeah, we'll keep going. The show moves on. I expect him to message me something's happening. And then the next game, Arkansas State at Georgia. Georgia still ranked number 3rd. Kind of controversially, as we talked about last episode.
You're in your mind.
Well, you thought also that they should be.
Yeah. That's right. I'm thinking of Alabama. Yeah, that's right.
That's where we stopped agreeing on. Nate, are you there? Okay, I saw his logo thing flash out, but
I think he's having internet problems.
All right. And then, so Georgia's 33-point favorites. We all have Georgia in that. Connor, you know about Arkansas State. I know they've been they've been good for their Sun Belt division, but I think Georgia can easily win by more than 33. I think they can win by 40 or so.
Like they were really good kind of not last season, but the season before and the season before that, they were really good. You know, they were competing. I mean, they were co-Sun Belt champs in I guess it's 2019 now. So they were co-Sun Belt champs in 2016 with, I think, Troy. And then in 2017, they were like they were fighting for that Actually, no, sorry. 2017 they were co-champs with Appalachian State, and then 2018 they were kind of fighting for. I'm getting this all wrong, aren't I? 2016 they were co-champs with Appalachian State. 2017 it was between them and Troy to who was going to be co-champs with App State, and Troy was the co-champ, but they were right there. And then last season, 2018 season, they were kind of middle of the pack in terms of the Sun Belt as a whole, because the Sun Belt East, the Sun Belt East is like way more powerful than the Sun Belt West, because the East has Troy, App State, and Georgia Southern, who are like the top 3 teams. So they couldn't even manage to get past Louisiana in the West, and Louisiana was in the title game.
Oh, okay. So
I don't think.
Off a bit,
yeah, they've fallen off. So I'm with you. I think Georgia can score 40 points in this game because they're not looking great anymore. They were good a few seasons ago, but not anymore.
Yeah. All right. So the next game here, number 6 Ohio State at Indiana. Ohio State are 16-point favorites, and I've got Indiana in this game because it seems like Ohio State always loses a game to an unranked Big Ten team. On the road, this Indiana, this has all the makings of that kind of a game. I'm not going to pick Indiana to win outright, but I think Ohio State, I think this is kind of like the Army-Michigan game where it's going to be a close game. It's going to be a one-possession game. So I think 16 points is too much. If it was at Ohio State, I'd give the nod to Ohio State. But being at Indiana, and I don't think this is the best Ohio State team that we've seen. So with that being said, I've got Indiana, but I see that you guys both have Ohio State. For some reason, Nate's not in the call. I'm not sure why. He says he can hear us, but we obviously can't hear him.
I guess he's having mic problems.
Yeah.
But yeah, with this one, I was kind of leaning close to picking. I guess you guys on the recording just saw I got a Discord message. But yeah, I was leaning towards picking Indiana on this one. Like for the spread, obviously, I do think Ohio State's going to win.
Hello?
But Nate's back.
Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. Close my mic.
It's all good. We haven't gotten anything real important, so you're good.
Yeah.
But
We're following along at least, so.
Okay, that's good, yeah.
Yeah, so I was close to picking Indiana, but it was really that game against, because obviously Indiana blew out Eastern Illinois last week, and they're a decent team, but it was how close their win against Ball State was. Like, they only managed to beat Ball State by 10, so that kind of concerns me about them. And, like, I agree Ohio State's probably not as good this year as they have been in the past, but I still think they're good enough to win by around 20 points or so, even though Indiana's at home.
I'm on the same page here. I think Justin Fields, after his first couple of games, he looked pretty legit, both as a runner and a passer for Ohio State. And I think that offense is going to be good enough to get it done against Indiana. I think Ohio State has struggled at Indiana in the past, but I think that I don't think Indiana is very good, just being straight up. So I think that's pretty fair.
Indiana's getting triggered
cover.
right now. You just triggered the whole state.
Well, except for the Notre Dame fans, they're happy.
Yeah, they're supporting you right now in this time. All right. So another rivalry. Speaking of Pitt at number 13, Penn State. Penn State, they're giving them 17 points against. And we all have Penn State in this, and I just don't think Pitt's a very good team. If it was at Pitt, I would consider, because I don't think Penn State's great either. They're 13 though, so they're a lot better than Pitt is. But I mean, this was a tough one because it's still a rivalry game, and you got to give the weaker teams some more advantages for it being a rivalry game, but being at Penn State, I think it's going to be loud. I think Penn State's going to win by more than 17. They'll be just fine.
Yeah, no, I think Penn State will be fine. I don't have any confidence that Pitt can do anything. I just don't think they're very good, even though it is a rivalry game. I mean, the ACC in and of itself just isn't very good this year anyway. And
Yeah.
I think Pitt's one of the worst teams in the ACC, especially since they're coming out of the Coastal, which is obviously the weaker of the two divisions.
Yep.
Yeah, I think Penn State easily covers that 17-point spread, but I'm interested to see how Pitt plays against a real team. So, with UCF playing them next week, it'll be interesting to see how those teams are going to stack up.
Oh yeah.
It's a big
All right.
Power 5 matchup.
Then in the next game, number 21 Maryland at Temple. Obviously, Maryland had a shockingly large win against Syracuse last week. They were favored by 1.5 to win at home against a ranked Syracuse team, but they absolutely destroyed them. And now they entered the game as 7.5-point favorites. It's at Temple though, and I've got Temple actually. I just feel like Maryland is the way that they've been playing is unsustainable. And kind of like Nate said earlier, like how last year they started out the season real strong. They won a couple games nobody thought they had a chance in, and they won, their first two games pretty easily, and one of them was against Syracuse. But I feel like Temple's a good enough team to win the game, let alone the 7.5. So I've got Temple in that. So
are you picking them
I
to
think
win,
Temple,
or are you picking the spread?
You know what? I'm gonna pick them to win too. So I'm gonna pick them to win the game. So the 7.5 is, I mean, I could see Maryland winning, but I think more realistically, if you've got a team winning the game and the other team's giving you points, you're gonna pick that team. So I've got Temple winning. That's my final pick.
Yeah, I had to go with Maryland. I mean, I picked Syracuse last week in that game against them to win, and that was completely shocking to me seeing that score. I was sitting at the App State game, just flipping through ESPN. I'm thinking, man, like what is going on here? Like, how is Maryland winning by this much? So I made the mistake of not picking them last time because I didn't think they were all that good, but I don't think Syracuse is all that great either, but the way they put up 63, they won that game 63-20. So it's really hard for me to pick against Maryland in this game, especially since it's only a 7.5-point spread. So, and I know they're going to Temple, but I still think Maryland's good enough to get it done.
Yeah, Maryland's kind of are going to make me reverse course here. I didn't take them seriously after beating Howard because I think any team in the Power 5 should destroy Howard. But after they put up that many points on Syracuse, which is a team that's known for its defense, I kind of believe in them right now. I think they're pretty legit. I think Temple, I think the 7.5 spread is very coverable for Maryland. I think they're going to put up way more than that. I could see them beating Temple by 24.
Wow.
I would say that.
Wow.
I think it's gonna be a blowout.
I've got Temple
just going off
winning,
of seeing how Temple
guys.
played last year.
Two very different takes here.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think Temple, they're ready to get exposed, I guess.
Okay, New Mexico at number 7 Notre Dame. Notre Dame, 35-point favorites, and Nate and I have New Mexico. Connor's got Notre Dame. I don't like Notre Dame's going to win this game, guys. That's a given. But 5 touchdowns, I feel like that's a little bit too much for the Lobos to So I've got New Mexico. I don't think it's going to be. I think they're going to win by maybe 4 touchdowns and a field goal. Yeah, and remember these spreads have been, last week anyways, they were really, really close to these games. So just give me the benefit of the doubt that Notre Dame doesn't score as many points as the spread thinks they will, and their defense will be a little bit worse than they think. So I'll take New Mexico, but not a super high confidence there with that pick.
Yeah, I think Notre Dame. Honestly, I think they're going to easily be able to get 35 points over New Mexico. I mean, the way New Mexico gave up 31 points to Sam Houston State, and if they're giving up 31 points to Sam Houston State, then I can only shudder to imagine what Notre Dame's going to do against them, against their defense. So New Mexico does have a good offense. I mean, they won that game with 40 points of their own, but it was still a close game. So combined together, and the way Notre Dame, I know they had a little bit of a tough time against Louisville. Like they didn't win by as much as everyone thought they should, but I think they should be able to get it done here. I think they can score 40 points at least over against New Mexico, and especially because Notre Dame's also at home. So
I'm picking I'm picking New Mexico here just because I agree with Zach. I think 35 points is way too high for Notre Dame to cover. I was looking up the numbers on it, and in their history, Notre Dame has never covered when over a 30-point favorite, or
Wow,
they've
that's
never covered a
interesting.
30-point spread.
Wow.
Yeah, so I don't see that changing here today. I think they're gonna beat New Mexico. Obviously, I think they're gonna do it pretty handily, but it's just not gonna show up on the scoreboard. I could see it being like 28-10 or something like that,
Yeah.
where if you watch the game, it's clear New Mexico doesn't have a chance, but it's not gonna be 35 plus point win for Notre Dame.
Yeah, kind of like the Auburn Tulane game of last week.
Right.
All right, so the next one here, number 2, Alabama versus South Carolina. Alabama 22.5-point favorites. We all have Bama. Yeah, I don't think South Carolina is that good, guys. Like they're not Bama, anyways. I mean, they're in the SEC West. Sorry, guys. They're in the SEC West, so they have they're in the tougher SEC division. But the two Eastern teams that they're playing this year, I mean, they play Tennessee every year, and then they kind of just rotate amongst every team the other game that they play, and they've got South Carolina this year. It's too easy. Like it's really too easy. I mean, their only really tough games are going to come against Texas A&M, LSU, and Auburn. Like that, those are going to be their only regular season, and then when they play Florida or Georgia in the championship game. But that's a big season picture. This game, they're going to easily win this by 30. Like I would make the spread 30 and then consider South Carolina 22.5. I'm not considering them at all in this.
Yeah, I remember at the beginning of the season when I was looking at Appalachian State's schedule and I was thinking, like, running through our games, what's going to be our toughest game? And I was like, man, I think that game at South Carolina is probably going to be our toughest game because that's a SEC school Power 5 team, and we're playing another Power 5 team in UNC, not this week but next week. And I was thinking, okay, we should run all over them because they sucked last year. But now I'm feeling a lot more confident about the South Carolina game and a lot less confident about the UNC game. So, but yeah, because that's why I'm with Zach. I don't think South Carolina is that good. So Bama should easily be able to cover this spread. I don't see any reason why they can't, especially with the way Tua has been playing in the first couple of weeks. No issues at all for Alabama, I don't think.
Yeah, I'm on the same page here. I think 22 points is very reasonable, especially considering that Bama beats pretty much everybody by 21 points. You got to be Georgia or Clemson to make it closer than that. So
yeah, that's
pretty easy cover this week.
This would be like the halftime spread. Like this should be the halftime spread. Like will Bama be winning by 22 at halftime? Like that's an argument for the game. No, I don't think so.
No.
All right, so our next one here we'll talk a little bit about more in depth, and then we'll kind of run through the rest of these a little bit quicker. Stanford at number 17, UCF. UCF 7.5-point favorites, and we all picked UCF. I do think this game has lost a little bit of its luster, considering that Stanford was ranked last week, and then they lost to USC and are now unranked. Had they won that game, this would have been a much more anticipated game for both teams being ranked, and it's still anticipated. I'm still looking forward to it because UCF is playing an out-of-conference team that's not Florida Atlantic or was it Florida A&M that they played in the first week. So it's their first real game that they've had, and they are at home. So I give them the edge there. I think they win by more than 7.5. Probably a couple touchdowns because, like we said, Stanford's not. They don't have as good of a players that they used to have. So I've got UCF with the edge, and they seem to cover the spread, pretty easily. I don't know why the odds makers didn't make this a little bit more, like 10 points or something, but or at least for the FAU game, that was kind of ridiculous how that was only 10 points.
That was
like,
free money.
Yeah.
They ended up winning by like 30 or something, but I'll let you guys talk about it, and then Nate can kind of give his, since he goes to that school, a little bit more detail.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting, like the spread too. I think they're not giving UCF enough credit in some of these games. I don't know why, if they're thinking like trying to judge off of like the end of last year when they lost those 2 games, but it's like they were without their quarterback in those games. So I don't know why the spreads have been so small, but I think UCF should easily cover this 7.5 point spread. And I said it last week when I picked USC to beat Stanford. I don't think Stanford's that good, so I don't see any reason why UCF can't do it, especially when they're also at home. I mean, I think this is going to be another easy money for people betting on UCF.
Yeah, I think the 7.5 spread, again, just like last week, is way too low, especially coming off a game for Stanford when they just let up 45 points and lost by 25 to USC, who was playing without their freshman quarterback, JT Daniels. So without their starting quarterback, USC, who wasn't really that hyped coming into the season, beat Stanford by 25 points. I think UCF should easily beat them by a score similar to that at home. Obviously, everyone knows UCF has the great offense. It's still up in the air as to who's going to start at quarterback, whether it's Brandon Wimbush, who sat out last week with an undisclosed injury, Dylan Gabriel, the true freshman who's been lighting it up the last couple games, or I believe Daryl Mack, the quarterback from the American Conference Championship and the Fiesta Bowl for UCF last year, is back from his injury. So we could see one or even all 3 of those quarterbacks come Saturday. But whoever starts, I think they're going to put up a lot of points, especially considering the running game we've had has arguably been better than the passing game. We've got 4 great running backs that can kind of rotate and do a lot of things on offense. And Stanford's probably the best defense, at least talent-wise, we've seen in, recent times. They've got obviously big-time players over there, so it'll be a good test for the offense to see, where they actually stack up. But I think the main concern against Stanford is that their offense isn't going to put up enough points to keep up with UCF. You look back at their scores, they only put up 17 versus Northwestern in week 1 and then only 20 versus USC last week. So I think it'll be a tough game. It'll be a good test to kind of see where UCF really is at, even though Stanford's not ranked anymore. I think they're still a very solid program. But I think at the end of the day, I don't think Stanford's going to be able to put up enough points to keep up with UCF. So I think 7.5 is definitely too low of a spread. I think I'm going to pick UCF to beat Stanford by I think 20's. I think 20 is pretty safe. The other aspect of this game I forgot to talk about is the heat. I think Zach can definitely attest to this. Living in Florida, it's toasty outside right now, and Stanford's coming from Palo Alto, where it's about 60, 70 degrees every day right now, and they're going to take a cross country flight 3 time zones over, and come down to Orlando, where it's probably going to be around 100 degrees.
Is it a day game too? Like
3:30 p.m. So
ooh.
Yeah, it's right in the middle of the
That's
day.
the worst time.
Rain.
That's the worst time. Yeah.
Yeah, there might be some rain in the forecast, but if it's sunny, it's going to be 100+ degrees on that field Saturday. And we saw it with the Pitt game last year. Some of those players are having a tough time dealing with the heat and the tempo of
Make them wear the red
UCF offense. Yeah, so I think taking all those factors into account, I think this is a very easy 20-point win for UCF. So that was your over detailed prediction there.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot more information than I knew. But those undisclosed injuries, though, those always make me suspicious. Like, what really happened? Like, it's probably something embarrassing that they don't want to talk about.
Well,
You know what I mean?
Well, they said
like,
he was.
Like that time that Kevin Cobb like injured his leg or something when he was running between practice fields.
Yeah. Well, I think it was more so that he was dealing with the injury. Wimbush was, and we were playing FAU, who obviously everyone knew UCF was going to beat them by a lot. So they mostly just held him out as a precautionary deal. They said he could have played if they absolutely needed him. Every other quarterback got hurt or something like that. But yeah, it's a very interesting situation here to say the least.
Yeah. The next one, USC ranked number 24 at BYU. USC is 4-point favorites. And for the next couple, I'll just run these down because they're not too significant for our sake. So Connor and I have USC. Nate's got BYU. Arizona State at number 18. Michigan State. Michigan State 13-point favorites. We've all got Sparty. Iowa State, another rivalry game. I don't really understand why these certain teams make their rivalry games in week 2 and week 3, like their biggest rivals and stuff. I guess this it just doesn't make sense to me. Like, why would you want to play each other like when you're not supposed to be your best at your best? You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I don't know. It's just always.
That's why Michigan and Ohio State always play last week of the season.
Yeah, right. Almost every team with their rival. Florida State, Clemson, South Carolina, Virginia Tech. Every team's big rival, or Alabama, Auburn. Like, they always play the last week. That's traditional rivalry week. But then you get some weird ones out there, like Colorado State and Colorado play like this early. And then Iowa State and Iowa. But Nate and I have Iowa State. Connor's got Iowa. And then that's only a 2.5-point spread, so it's pretty much a pick'em game. And then the next one, Idaho State. We had to look up Idaho State, what their mascot is. They're the Vikings, guys.
No,
they're the Idaho State's the Bengals.
Oh, they're the Bengals, yeah.
They're the Bengals because Marvin Lewis went there.
They're the other NFL.
Yeah.
NFL wannabe team. They're playing number 11 Utah. And Utah's 36.5-point favorites. We've all got Utah. Kent State at number 8 Auburn. Auburn's 35-point favorites. Nate and I have Kent State. And then Connor's got Auburn. Florida and Kentucky. This one's going to be an interesting one. Number 9 ranked Florida. 8-point favorites in Lexington. We've all got Florida winning that. And then Lamar at number 16 Texas A&M. We want to look up Lamar too.
Lamar.
Yeah.
Shoot, guys, it's escape. What was Lamar again? Does anybody remember?
They're from Texas. I know that.
Yeah, we know they're from Texas.
The Cardinal. It's generic.
Oh yeah, the
Lamar Cardinal.
Yeah. So they're playing Texas A&M. Texas A&M is going to give them a butt whooping, but we've all got Lamar.
Rivalry game. They're both from Texas.
Yeah.
There's so many Texas schools though. It's like, what are the odds? Pretty good. Number 1, Clemson at Syracuse. Clemson 27.5-point favorites, and I'm the only one that's got Clemson. Especially after seeing Syracuse last week is why I really picked them. I know it's at Syracuse, but still, I just feel like Clemson's gonna go on a tear. I don't think Syracuse is all that. I see you guys each have Syracuse, so I'll let one of you guys talk about that. Whoa.
Well, I mean, Syracuse seems to always put up. There's some kind of a fight against Clemson. I mean, last year nobody gave them credit to do anything against Clemson either, but they almost beat Clemson in South Carolina last year. So, and especially they're going to be motivated coming off of that, 63-20 embarrassment against Maryland. Mm-hmm. So, by no means do I think that Syracuse is going to win, but I'm pretty sure that they can. Keep Clemson under 27.5-point win. So I think it'll be like a 2-touchdown win for Clemson.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with this one. I'm not picking them Syracuse to win, but I do think it'll be closer than 27 points for Clemson. 2 years ago, Syracuse did beat Clemson at home, and I think it's gonna be a similar situation this time. I think the Carrier Dome's gonna be rocking. I think it'll be a great environment, and I think Syracuse will. I think it'll be one of those things where it'll be close at the end of the first half. And everyone will be like, "Is Clemson on upset alert?" And then Clemson will pull away late, but it won't be, a 27-point win like the line says.
Okay. All right. The next one, Northwest State at number 4 LSU, and this is another one we had to look up. And also, where is Northwest State University? Well, it turns out they're not in Washington, Oregon, Montana, Idaho. They're in the state of Louisiana.
They're not even in the north.
Yeah, they're. So we're not quite sure if they're just called Northwest State University or if they're Northwest State University of Louisiana. Either way, you've probably never heard of them before, and that's why LSU is 51-point favorites. But we all are going to give some hope that they don't lose that badly. Anyways, you've all picked Northwestern State. So I'm blanking on these names. You guys remember what they were, or were they the?
They were the.
They the
actually,
Vikings?
I don't. No, they weren't the Vikings.
Yeah.
I can't remember who we.
Northwestern was the Demons.
Oh
yeah, that's right. They've got like that demon as their
scary.
mascot.
Yeah, spooky.
Okay, and then the next one, Hawaii, is coming to the mainland of the United States to face number 21 Washington. Washington 21.5-point favorites. Connor and I have Hawaii. Nate has Washington, and really I couldn't give much. I'm kind of down on Washington right now, considering they lost by 1 to Cal. And Hawaii is not a bad team. Hawaii, is going to stick around this game. So 21.5 is too much, I think, for them. Going down to the next one here, FS useless. Sorry to offend the Seminoles out there, but they're they're playing number 25 Virginia. Virginia's 7-point favorites. We've all got Virginia. If you've seen FSU, the memes and stuff, God, dude, they've talk about a program that's fallen off the map. I mean, it was just like, it hasn't even been 10 years since they won the national championship, but now they're barely beating Louisiana Tech or someone that they played, Louisiana Monroe or something.
Yeah, with Louisiana Monroe that they almost lost to.
Yeah, if they didn't miss like an extra point or something, they would have kept going. Like, that was kind of embarrassing. It's kind of a low moment to be a Seminole. It's a low moment to be a Volunteer right now. So I can relate. But yeah.
Eric is heavily relating to you on that one.
Yeah, we heard this mini rant about that last time. And then the next one, number 5, Oklahoma at UCLA. Oklahoma's 22.5-point favorites, and we've all got Oklahoma. They just score so many points. Like 22.5 seems like a breeze. Like they can get that in like 10 minutes. UCLA is not very good, so we're on agreement there. And then number 12 Texas going to Rice. They're going. Rice is going to have a big party for this. But Texas are 31.5-point favorites. We've all got Texas winning. And then Portland State at number 20.
Those are the Vikings.
Those are the Vikings. I don't know why I kept thinking every team was the Vikings, because they were the last one we looked up their team name. And Boise State, 31.5-point favorites. I've never heard of Portland State. I've heard of Portland before, but gosh, I mean, Boise State should win this by more than 31.5 points. Connor's got Portland State. Nate's got Boise State. And then Montana at number 15, Oregon. Oregon, 36.5-point favorites. We've all got Oregon. I think based off of last week's demolishing of Nevada.
God, that was crazy.
Yeah, 77-6 against Nevada, who's not a bad team, but Montana's even worse than Nevada. So, and then our +1 game of the week, TCU at Purdue. TCU, 2-point favorites, and Connor and I have the Horned Frogs. Nate, however, is going with the Boilermakers. I think TCU wins the game. I think their defense is going to carry them to the win. And that kind of wraps up the college games there, guys. If you're going off of last week's stats, pick the teams I picked because I did the best last week. But
I don't know about that.
I'm a plug there for you guys. But
maybe you can go with his college teams, but don't go with his NFL teams.
That is true.
You're going to find out here in a second why.
Well, I think I'm going to rebound after last week. But if you want the safer route, go with Nate, because Nate got all but two wrong. Granted, we're not picking the spreads, but still, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Thursday night game, we're all in agreement with. Panthers over the Buccaneers is what we think will happen.
Yeah,
but
it's actually going to be starting here in like 5 minutes.
Yeah, I should turn on my TV and have that going on right now.
Yeah.
But
Live update.
so I can inform you 2 plays ahead of what's going on.
yeah, I mean, I hope Tampa wins, but I mean, realistically, it's not very likely. But
Go Panthers. Got to pull for the North Carolina
yeah,
team.
this is interesting because both Connor and myself, like, these are our second favorite teams that we would root for playing each other in this.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. And then San Francisco at Cincinnati. The consensus between 3 of us is that San Francisco will win. Nate, you're the oddball out. Why do you think Cincinnati's going to win?
I'm going to Cincinnati just because it's at home, which these are 2 teams that I had a tough time with this one. I think I'm giving the edge to Cincinnati because they're at home, and I don't really trust the 49ers yet. Jimmy Garoppolo was kind of iffy last week, I thought. So I'm not ready to give them the benefit of the doubt to these type of games just yet. So I'm going Cincinnati at least this week.
Okay. The next one, the Chargers going to Detroit, and I'm the oddball out on this one. I've got the Lions winning. Everybody else has the Chargers. And my reason with this, kind of like Nate, but I mean, the Chargers are definitely more proven of a team, but I just feel like this is one that Detroit's going to win at home. And the Chargers, I mean, they struggled to beat the Colts in their Week 1 game. And I know Detroit, had the tie with Arizona, but something tells me this is just a gut feeling. I don't really have many like facts or hard evidence to support my pick. It's just kind of my gut. When I saw this matchup, my gut told me Detroit, so that's what I went with. I went with my gut in a lot of these picks too, guys. So because some of them you might see are a little weird. So Minnesota at Green Bay. We're all in unanimous Minnesota in that pick. Indianapolis at Tennessee, another division game. We're all in unanimous with Tennessee. And New England Patriots at Miami Dolphins. We'll talk about this one because Nate's obviously a New England fan, but you might be shocked. You might fall out of your seat if you're sitting down. You might, if you're standing up, you might just drop to the ground when you hear this. I don't know what's going to happen. But guys, I'm picking Miami to win this game. So go ahead and get your
where's my
way.
my Mountain Dew? I need to do a spit take right now.
This is the hottest of takes.
It is. I really do think Miami's going to win this game. And obviously New England's the better team, but that doesn't always mean the better team wins the game. I mean, it seems like every year there's a team that wins the Super Bowl or, is in the Super Bowl, one of those top teams in the league. They seem to one of those teams always drops a weird loss somewhere in their schedule. They always have a weird, loss where you lose to somebody that, just got a couple wins. It's just so random and so weird. And for this season, I think this is going to be the one. And I've got a little bit of historical, stuff on my side because this is the only stadium where only city where Tom Brady's got a losing record in at Miami. And kind of the same, when Nate was talking about the UCF and Stanford, I mean, this is similar. New England's got to come down to Florida and play in this heat, and that's one thing that Miami's got going for them is they're used to this heat. They've, as used to it as you can be, considering they live here. Most of the players do anyways. And Miami just always has a knack for beating New England in Miami. And it just seems to me like this is the weird game that's going to happen for the year that you're going to go, question mark, why, but
kind of like
this
when
might,
Buffalo destroyed Minnesota last
yeah,
year.
yeah, that's kind of like last
Yeah.
year's equivalent. Minnesota didn't end up doing that great, but I don't like Miami. This just seems like the one game that they want to win too, because they always want to beat New England, their rivals. You know what I mean? It just seems like this is going to be the one game that they really try and win. Coach Flores comes from the New England tree. Last year, we saw uh, Patricia's team beat New England. So, for a long time, all the New England, all the Belichick successors and stuff, they always would lose to Belichick when they played each other. But Patricia kind of, maybe as a defensive guy, they have a little more of an advantage. I don't know. But he did win against New England, and New England lost in week 2 in Florida against obviously a better Jaguars team. But still, I mean, that was Blake Bortles at quarterback, who had a huge game. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if Fitz or Rosen, whoever plays, if they end up having the game of their life. For whatever reason, it seems like that happens. Like Jay Cutler a couple years ago had the game of his life against New England. It's just like you don't expect it, but it's happened so many times where I'm just like, okay, it's gonna happen, and if they do lose, I think it's gonna be a close game. If Miami does lose, but this is what my gut's telling me, and that's kind of why I went with Miami. But go ahead and pile on my pick. Go tell me why I'm an idiot.
I mean, the only thing I have to say, like, I'll let Nate toss it to his team, but the only thing I have to say is that normally I would be in agreement that, like, I would be considering Miami because, I mean, like, they won last year too. Like, they won the year before and they won last year in Miami. This season, I think Miami is just too bad this year to put up a fight. Like, they're in full-on tank mode. They're just going for the number 1 pick. And the way that they let, Baltimore just score all over them, I see no reason as to why Tom Brady can't do the same thing. So I just think they're just too bad to win this game.
I'm in agreement here. If it was a normal year and Miami was kind of averagely, mediocre as they've been the past decade or so, I would agree with Zach that this is always a trap game when the Patriots have to come back. Sorry about that. When the Patriots have to come down to Florida, whether it's Miami or even Jacksonville last year, they always fumble and don't look right for some reason. But I just think Miami's too bad this year. I mean, last week they let up 5 touchdowns to Lamar Jackson, who had 6 all of last year, and they let up a touchdown to RG3, who hasn't played in I don't know how long. So I think Tom Brady should have no trouble with this team. If everything goes right, he should be out of the game by third quarter. And I'm looking for. It'll be interesting to watch. Obviously, the big news this week: Antonio Brown coming to the Patriots. This is also kind of a homecoming game for him, as he grew up and played high school in the Miami kind of South Florida area. So, yeah. But overall, I think Pats are gonna roll this week.
Well, by the chance, if Miami does win this, man, I'm gonna be letting it all over Twitter and like, come look at this video. I told you guys.
I was like the one person on planet Earth that wasn't a Dolphins fan that picked Miami.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting. I'm gonna pay a close eye to that. Go Dolphins. I always root for the Dolphins against New England, but especially now. Buffalo at the New York Giants. We've all got Buffalo winning that. Connor, you told me you were close on making this your survival pick, but you decided not to.
Yeah, I was close. Like, when I first ran through the games, this was my first instinct was to pick Buffalo in this game. But I know last week I talked about how, or not last week, but like last episode I talked about how legit Buffalo's defense is. But if there is one weakness on this Buffalo defense, it's definitely the run defense. And so, will Saquon Barkley run all over them? I don't know. Eli Manning's not going to be passing on them. I know that. But if Saquon Barkley can get the yards and play at, like the way he did last year, then it could be a tough game for Buffalo. So I'm not 100%. Like, there's another. My survival pick is one that I'm more confident in than this one. Even though I'm still picking Buffalo to win, I'm not as confident in it as I was originally.
Yeah, I see. All right, so then the next game, Seattle at Pittsburgh. Connor and I have Pittsburgh. Oh, Nate does too, actually. Eric's the only one with Seattle. But Connor, I'll let you talk about, the Steelers are your team, so why do you think they're just winning because you want to, or you actually?
Well, I think they're gonna, obviously that was pretty embarrassing last week against New England. I mean, I think a lot of people obviously expected New England to win, but they didn't expect it to be a blowout like it was. So I think the Steelers are going to come back this week. I think Ben Roethlisberger, I think he's going to have a field day against Seattle's secondary because Seattle has no pieces left in their secondary from the Legion of Boom. And Shaquille Griffin is supposed to be their number one corner, and he's okay, I guess. But, I mean, Andy Dalton just came off a 400-yard performance against their secondary. So I expect Roethlisberger to tear them up. I think Seattle's offense is going to score some points too. I know obviously Pittsburgh doesn't have the best defense in the world either, but I think Pittsburgh's offense is going to be too much, and obviously they're going to be motivated by getting blown out by New England, who is one team they really didn't want to get blown out by. So, and it's the home opener.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah, I agree with this one. I think this should be a pretty easy rebound game for Pittsburgh here.
Okay. Yeah, I concur. Eric, I'm curious why Eric's got Seattle. Really, I really am. But
yeah,
but we'll never know. Dallas at Washington. This is another game where I'm by myself. I'm either gonna have a genius-looking week or a really bad-looking week. This. I could easily catch you guys in the standings for this, or I could fall even farther behind. But my reasoning with Washington, and I'll let you guys talk about why you think Dallas will win, but this is a division game. These two teams really don't like each other. And when those are the case, you tend to throw teams' records and, talent out of the picture a little bit because they're so, these rivalry games can be so close. And that's what I see in this. And Washington actually surprised me last week. Case Keenum had a good game against what we thought was going to be a really good Philadelphia Eagles defense. The jury's still out on that, but give me Washington at home here. I don't think Dallas is. I think Dallas is going to be kind of overconfident in this game. I think they're gonna. I think when the schedule came out, they just saw this and they went W. They didn't even think about it. But I'm sure Philly did the same thing against Washington. That was at Philly, so it was tougher to win. But and I do think Philly's better than Dallas. But give me Washington in this. I mean, they had a couple unproven receivers last week who had a good game. So we didn't really know much about them, and now there's another chance for them to do that against Dallas's secondary, which hasn't been that great. The defense is definitely seeming like the weaker part of Dallas's team, and I still feel like Washington has a good enough defense to be able to slow down this Dallas offense. So give me Washington. Once again, a little bit more of a gut feeling I've got here, but yeah, I like the Redskins, and I'm sure Dallas is favored too. So if you're betting with the line, take Washington, guys.
Well, unlike your Miami pick, this is actually one where I could actually I do kind of see this game going either way, the way Washington performed last week. I also wouldn't be shocked if Washington just turned into their old self from last year and completely allowed Dallas to, run all over them. But I got to go with Dallas. I mean, because to me, as long as Ezekiel Elliott's around, it's going to be hard for me to pick against Dallas because if, Ezekiel Elliott was injured or still holding out, there'd be a lot more games where I'd be picking against them. But as much as I don't like the Cowboys, I can't deny that Ezekiel Elliott is one of the best running backs in the league, and he's going to carry them. And I think DeMarcus Lawrence and the Dallas Cowboys are just going to be sacking Case Keenum all over the place because with Washington's offensive line. So that's why I've got Dallas. But I wouldn't, like I said, unlike the Miami game, I wouldn't be surprised if Washington did win this game, being at home and the fact that it's a rivalry game and how unexpectedly good they performed against Philadelphia last week.
Mm-hmm.
I went with Dallas as my survival pick this week, actually, which now I'm
Wow.
thinking I maybe should have saved them for later in the year because I'm
That's
pretty
why I
excited
didn't pick
about.
them.
Yeah. I'm pretty excited about Dallas and their new look offense. I think this is probably the most creative offense. I mean, it's a small sample size. Obviously, the Giants aren't great, but they were doing some pretty creative stuff last week, other than just pound Zeke up the middle, which was pretty stagnant the last couple of years. So I'm pretty high on Dallas right now. I think they should easily beat Washington. That's why I made them my survival pick this week.
Okay. Uh, the next one here, Arizona at Baltimore. We've all got Baltimore in this game. Uh, and then Jacksonville at Houston. Eric and I have Jacksonville. Connor and Nate have Houston. And my reasoning for this is I think this news has came out kind of recently that Ngakwe and Campbell are both expected to be playing in this game. So they were kind of banged up a little bit at the end of the Chiefs game, but they expect them to be able to go and forward in this game, and that's going to make a huge difference. Two great pass rushers against this Houston offensive line. Uh, I could see this game being like the Jaguars opener from 2 seasons ago, where they really just demolished Houston. And they have a lot of. I think the formula is there, even with Nick Foles being hurt. Uh, if they can pound the rock with Leonard Fournette, and who didn't look bad either in the last game. I know he had the fumble and the interception. You can blame on him, but as far as running the football, he did a pretty good job. He had a high yards per carry, which has been the biggest knock on him, is that he doesn't have a high yards per carry, but he actually had a good one against KC. And with Minshew and everything, I will say this. I mean, he's obviously a 6th-round rookie pick. You don't expect. I certainly didn't expect anything out of him when he got thrust in against KC, but he broke a couple of records for completion percentage and completions before you throw your first incompletion or something like that with for playing in your first game. So I mean, he's definitely got the confidence to be able to come out and do this, and he's got some attitude about him that's just different. Like he wears, he wears the bandana, he's got the mustache. He's just a different kind of guy. He's not normally a rookie quarterback like that would just fall on their face and not know what to do, it'd be too much for him. But considering his background and his history of how he came to be in the NFL, going from team to team and stuff, not even thinking he was going to play to being at Washington State and leading the league or leading the conference in passing yards and stuff. I have a lot more faith in him than I would have had in the preseason when he was looking pretty bad. But with that being said, I think as an offense they can get 21 points in this game with Minshew. And I've said from the start, if they get 21 points with the defense that they have, they should win most of their games. And I think that's the case here, just because I think Houston's going to have a harder time to score points than they did against New Orleans. But I'm going under the assumption that Jacksonville's defense doesn't play like they did against KC, because obviously if that's the case, they're going to lose this game. But I don't think that'll be the case. And I think this defensive line is going to be so violent. I mean, I don't want to predict an injury or anything, but I'd be worried if I was a Texans fan for Deshaun Watson. I mean, I really would be. It's definitely a concern, and I've got Jacksonville, but I see you guys both have Houston, so I'll let you explain why there.
Well, on a side note, before we get to Houston, the Tampa-Carolina game's being delayed for weather now.
Oh, man.
Pretty interesting. It was pouring down rain, but I guess a thunderstorm's rolling in or something. I wish some of that rain would make its way up to where I'm at. Anyway, for me, this is going to be a heavy defensive struggle game. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of points put up. But I think I got to give the edge to Houston because they managed to keep New Orleans, like, for the most part, more in check than everybody thought they were going to. I mean, because, like, 30 points, obviously, that looks kind of bad. But, I mean, the way that they handled Drew Brees and the fact that they really should have won that game, they were playing really stupid prevent defense at the end of the game. I don't know whose idea that was when New Orleans only needed 20 yards to get into field goal range to play prevent defense. But, maybe that guy got fired or something. I don't know.
Oh, the player got fired. Aaron Coleman got cut, and they owe him $7.5 million in guarantees. So that's kind of.
But yeah, I think it's gonna be a defensive struggle. I don't think either offense is really gonna be able to get anything going. Like Houston, I don't think will be able to get anything going because of the offensive line, and Deshaun Watson is gonna be running for his life. I don't think Jacksonville is going to be getting anything going because the Houston defense is going to know that they have to key on Leonard Fournette. And I don't, obviously the Jaguars have an unproven guy at quarterback. So how well is he going to do against Houston? I don't know, especially when J.J. Watt's coming his way too. So, but I think Houston's going to be able to put points up first, and I think they're going to be able to put up slightly more. So I'd probably give this game to Houston, like something like 17-10 or 14-10, but like really close game going down to the wire. And Houston's also at home, so I got to give the edge to Houston.
Yeah, I agree. I gave the edge to Houston here, mostly based on the home field advantage. I think I really like Gardner Minshew and how he played last week. I'm pretty excited to see how he continues to develop. But I just think and granted, it was against KC. Obviously, everyone knows how great their offense is. But I just thought the Jags defense played pretty uninspired last week.
Eric ranted on that.
Yeah. And I think obviously the talent's there. Hopefully they can rebound this week. But I think a similar performance to last week is not going to get it done against Deshaun Watson after how he looked last week. So I'm giving the edge to Houston this week.
Okay. Then the next one here, unanimously, we all have KC over Oakland. That was actually my original survival pick, but I went to a little bit more of a deeper track, so to say, on that, a little bit less conventional. And that leads us to our next game, Chicago at Denver. I was the only one who picked Denver, and I'll be the only one who gets this game right.
Give it a lock. Miami and Washington, right?
Well, I'm locking this one because I've got my survival pick.
Okay, I need to write this down on a piece of paper. Yep, Zach is locking Denver beating Chicago.
Locking Denver beating Chicago, and you might be saying, "What are you high on?"
Well, the last time you locked something, it was when that you were going to get points in that DraftKings lineup, and you ended up finishing like 9th or something.
my lock history has not been good, but I will say that I did some next gen stats on this Denver, team, and what I've got listed up here on YouTube, 2018 through 1999, are Denver's home games in the month of September. And for those of you who are listening on podcasting site, to summarize, they're 31-5 in September in the Mile High City. Their last actual loss came in 2010, and their last opening loss, like the last time that they opened the season in Denver and lost, came in 1999. On the record, there have been numerous players that have played in Denver this early in the season, and they're just not ready for it. Their bodies just aren't used to the low oxygen and everything going on there. And this is such an overwhelming home field advantage. And it's not like Denver made the playoffs in every single one of these years. I mean, there's years where they go 2-0, like last year, and then they only end up winning a few more games for the rest of the season. They're not, they're obviously some of these years they went to the Super Bowl or deep in the playoffs, but I think this is pretty overwhelming that they have a huge advantage in this. And it's not like the Chicago Bears are running into town as, Super Bowl favorites or anything, especially considering how they played against Green Bay. Eric ranted about their offense. Denver, I think, wins this game. I've got them locking this game. And I just feel like no matter what Denver does, they're going to win just because they always seem to do it. 31-5 since 1999. I mean, that's pretty hard to argue. So if Denver loses, I'll be shocked. I mean, I'll just be stunned if that happens. So I've got them as my survival pick, even though Chicago's probably favored, which makes no sense to me. But like I said a couple times, I've said it before, geography it plays a huge role in what I make my picks about. And I definitely respect it, and I respect Denver's September advantage. So if Denver plays another September game, expect me to pick them to win. I don't know if they do or not, but
at
expect me to
home,
pick
at
them.
home
Even
at least.
yeah, at home. If they play at home, if they play on the road, who knows? But yeah. So I've got that. You guys have Chicago though, so go ahead.
Well, this is going to be another defensive struggle game. I mean, but again, I got to give the edge to Chicago because they managed to hold Aaron Rodgers to 10 points. And like that combined with the fact that Denver's offense could only put up 15, or it was like 16 or something on Oakland. Realistically, I don't see Denver putting up more than 6 to 9 points on Chicago. So it's going to be another low scoring game. And I think Denver, like if Chicago can give Mitch Trubisky at least a little bit of time, then I think he should be able to. I think he's going to bounce back. Like he's going to be watching all that tape of him last week. I missed all these open receivers. I played really poorly. Blah, blah, blah. I think he's going to have a little bit of a bounce back. I'm not saying he's going to put up like 30 or 35 points on this defense, but I think they're going to be able to put up at least 20 or 21. Which, like I said, combined with the fact that I don't see Denver getting more than 6 to 9 points, that's why I got to give the edge to Chicago, even though Denver is at home, and that stat that Zach just provided, but I'm still going with Chicago.
Yeah, I think, obviously we saw how bad Mitch Trubisky looked last week. I do think he's in store for a little bit of bounce back. I agree with that point. It's also just that Chicago's defense looked really good last week, regardless of the way the offense were playing. And I think they're gonna get to they're not gonna have any trouble getting to Joe Flacco this week. So I think it'll be a low-scoring game. Probably won't be the best football game to watch, but I think Chicago's gonna get it done on the strength of their defense.
All right. The next game we have, obviously, the revenge game for New Orleans. So they hope they go to Los Angeles to play the Rams, and I'm the only one with the Rams in this. And I'm kind of surprised that I am. I thought someone else would pick the Rams.
I definitely considered it, but
yeah. I mean, this is something like sometimes you get teams in these motivation games and stuff, and they play their hearts out, and it shows up. And other times they play they play too emotionally, and I feel like New Orleans is going to be coming into this too emotionally, whereas I think the Rams are going to kind of be like the Rams. Like the Rams are not a bad team, and they're at home. They beat them the last time they played. They shouldn't have, but they did. But if this was in New Orleans, I'd pick New Orleans. But I don't. This is another kind of just gut pick. Give me the home team, and when it's a game with two pretty similar teams that I have ranked, the Rams and Saints, I can see a lot of similarities. I'll just tend to pick the home team, and that's what I'm doing in this pick. So.
Yeah, I'm going with New Orleans solely based on the fact that I think they're going to be highly motivated by the fact that they want to prove they can beat Los Angeles without some like bad call going Los Angeles's way and them losing the game. They're going to want to come out and beat Los Angeles by like 20 or 25 to 30 points to prove that we really are the better team and we should have been the ones in the Super Bowl last year. So I know Los Angeles is at home, but I got to give New Orleans the edge just based on that. Is really the only reason. Because I think you're right. They're both very similar. I think New Orleans has a bit of a better defense right now. Because Aaron Donald, really did nothing last week. It was pretty surprising. I was watching the Panthers game, and, they didn't even mention Aaron Donald's name, once. I think he got his first tackle in, the third quarter. So,
yeah.
I mean, if New Orleans' offensive line can, have a similar performance to what the Panthers did, then I don't see any reason why Drew Brees won't just be throwing all over the Rams. Because, obviously Cam Newton didn't do as good, but Brees is in a different level than Cam Newton when it comes to quarterbacks. So that's why I got to give it to New Orleans.
Yeah, I agree. I think New Orleans has a better offense. After watching them last week, I think New Orleans, I think they picked up right after how they left off last year, whereas the Rams, they played well against Carolina, but I don't think they're as dominant this year, especially on defense. So I think New Orleans is going to get it done, even though it's in LA. I think they're going to go and get revenge for that NFC Championship game last year.
All right. The next game here, Philly at Atlanta. This is a Sunday night game, and Connor and I have Atlanta. Eric and Nathan have Philly, and this is another close game. It's kind of like the New Orleans Rams game, where I'm just giving the home team the edge when there's two teams that I feel like are pretty evenly matched. I just tend to give the home team the edge. I know it's not the most, or it's pretty basic feedback commentary on it, but I just don't see. I think that Atlanta will win by a field goal or something. I think it's just typical home team wins the game sort of deal. So
yeah, well, I'm happy to see that I actually have a pick different from Nathan, because it seems I think pretty well all of our picks were the same except for that one.
Wow, that's
pretty much.
So,
yeah, I'm looking at it now.
Yeah, so
San Francisco, Cincinnati.
Right. Okay. So
yeah,
there's that one, but yeah.
Wow.
So I had to pick it. I think Atlanta's due for a bounce back. I mean, they didn't look very good against the Vikings last week, and so their offense is just too good to not, have a bounce back week. I mean, when you got an offense with Matt Ryan, Devontae Freeman, Julio Jones, and Calvin Ridley, if you're not putting up points, then something's wrong. Something's really wrong, and I'm gonna have to reconsider Atlanta picking Atlanta anymore after this week if that happens. So
yeah,
I think they're due for a bounce back, and like Zach said, they're the home team, so I'm gonna give it to Atlanta.
I think last week Philly's offense, they started pretty slow, obviously versus Washington, but second half they turned it on and they looked pretty legit on the offensive side of the ball. And their defense, I think everyone knew coming into the year that was going to be a pretty strong unit. And I think they're going to go and get it done versus Atlanta this week. I do think Atlanta should be have at least a little bit of a bounce back. Just kind of get back to their average output, what we kind of expect from them. But I think it's going to be tough versus Philly defense. And that's why I think, even though it's in Atlanta, I think Philly's going to come out with a win. It won't be a blowout, but I could see a 3-point, 6-point win for Philly.
Okay. And that leads us to the Monday night game, Cleveland at the New York Jets. And Eric's the only one with the Jets here, but I'll give him the opportunity, since I know he's working all day today. I'll give him the opportunity to change that pick, as Connor changed his pick due in light to the recent information about Sam Darnold having mono and not being able to play, obviously, indefinitely, I think, for that. And Trevor Siemian is now the Jets starting quarterback. And yeah, so that's all you need to know. And the Jets don't have a kicker either, so.
Yeah, well, I've touched on that many times, so.
The Jets not having a kicker is a common theme in this side.
Not a great time to be a Jets fan.
So earlier in the show, we ran down the matchups for our fantasy.
Oh, I forgot about our survival picks too.
Oh shoot! Well, I mean, we all talked about our.
We kind of
mentioned ours. I think I forgot to mention mine actually.
Oh, okay.
But because I'm going, we'll get Eric on here too.
Eric's got New England, so
which
I think
we're all pretty surprised he's taking them
using
this
New
early.
England.
Yeah, this early. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah. Well, so I've got Carolina because I guess I did say that it was my most confident. I didn't say this. I said I was thinking Buffalo originally, but this was my next most confident game after Buffalo because I wanted to save New England and Kansas City for later. So I was like, all right, I'll pick Carolina. So I will know tonight whether or not I'm still going to be strikeless or not.
Yep. All right, so I'll share you guys my starting lineup here in fantasy for this week. I've got Carson Wentz at quarterback, Juju Smith-Schuster as my wide receiver 1. I've got Tyler Boyd as my wide receiver 2, but I'm not super thrilled about that. I might end up changing him out with D.D. Westbrook and putting Joe Mixon in as my flex position, but I just don't know about Joe Mixon's health right now, so that's why I have Joe Mixon on my bench. And the rest of my team, Alvin Kamara, obviously a no-brainer start, RB1. Josh Jacobs is my RB2. I was very high on him coming into the fantasy season, and he saved me last week, so I owe him a lot. I mean, in theory, all my players saved me, but since he was the last one to play, he was like that 13-yard put it over the top for me to win. So I've got him. And
Josh Jacobs just got a 13-yard run. Yes.
Yeah, I might have to find that clip and save it and stuff. Put it in to re-air it because that was pretty funny. Because that's live unfiltered. It's not like I had time to process it. I had no idea. I hadn't watched it. It's just Connor coming on saying Josh Jacobs got a 13-yard run, and I was really excited. So my tight end would be Mark Andrews, only tight end I carry on this team, but and he's got a green matchup too to keep in mind. And last week, 24 points, caught all of his targets. I mean, they were going up against the Dolphins, but they're going up against the Cardinals now, so it's not that big a difference.
Cakewalk schedule for Baltimore so far.
Yep. And then give me D.D. Westbrook as my slot. Number 1 receiver for the Jags. I don't obviously DJ Chark led fantasy for the Jags last week, but Westbrook should get a lot more targets from Minshew. And the thing about Minshew is, anyways, in the last game, I mean, all of his throws were pretty much completions. So if that happens to continue, somebody's going to be catching the ball. I think DD will get his, and this is PPR, so catches are important. They're worth a point. And give me Brett Maher Chevrolet. Give me him as my kicker. Dallas will hopefully gets to kick some field goals this time, not extra points. And like my survival pick, give me that Denver defense against Chicago. I mean, please give me any defense playing that Chicago offense. And yeah, so that's my team. I'll go over to Connor's team and I'll show you his starting lineup. He'll talk about it. Where are you? Kenneth there was leg.
My name's pretty easy to find. Both Nate and I have Jets players as our profile pick. But yeah, so not the greatest week in the world for me last week. Pretty disappointing about what happened last week. So I'm looking for a bounce back week here. I did play the team that got the second most points in the league, so I'm a bit I'm a bit positive that I probably wouldn't have won last week anyway. But I also got the second lowest point total, so not good. Looking for good things. Ben Roethlisberger, like I said, I think he's going to tear that Seattle secondary apart. So looking for good things from him. Julio Jones, I think, again, Atlanta's going to have a bounce-back week, and Julio Jones is a no-brainer starter in fantasy anyway. So then I've got Jarvis Landry. I unfortunately didn't start him last week when I should have. He did better than the guy I put at my wide receiver too. So the thing about Jarvis Landry is that you're always kind of banking on him getting receptions because he tends to not get a whole lot of yards. I mean, he got 67 yards last week, but he's the guy who will get like 7 or 8 receptions in the game to go with, 40 yards or something, but that's still 12 points, so I'll take that. Then I've got Kerryon Johnson as my running back 1. I mean, after seeing how Marlon Mack tore through the Chargers defense last week, it's kind of hard for me not to pick Kerryon Johnson. Bit underwhelming what he did against the Cardinals. I would think he'd do more, but I mean, yeah, but like I said, after the way Marlon Mack performed against the Chargers last week, I don't expect anything less from Kerryon Johnson.
Go Bulls.
Yeah, I also benched Marlon Mack last week, so that was also another mistake. But I'm going to have him going against Tennessee, so I was like, all right, I'll put Marlon Mack in this time. I won't bench him again. They give Zach Ertz as my tight end. He also had a pretty underwhelming game.
Yeah, he did.
Deshaun Jackson was getting all those touchdowns and everything, and Alshon Jeffrey were the main targets for Carson Wentz in that game. I mean, 10 points isn't horrible, but you expect more from Zach Ertz. So hopefully he'll do better this week. Hopefully Atlanta does a bit better job in not giving up 50-yard touchdowns to Deshaun Jackson. Then I originally didn't have James Conner in my lineup, but then as my flex, but then I realized that Duke Johnson was my flex, and he's going up against Jacksonville. So I guess I trust James Conner more. A lot of people, I'm sure, are thinking, like, James Conner, he's like a no-brainer starter in fantasy, but he didn't have the best performance last week. So, and I think Roethlisberger's going to be throwing it a lot against Seattle. I don't know how much they're going to run the ball. I know James Conner can catch the football, too. I mean, that's how he got most of his points last week. But I think that's why I have him as my flex and not my running back one. Then Adam Vinatieri as my kicker. He missed an extra point last game, so that was pretty disappointing. I was waiting for him to get
some goal too.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe he's not as clutch as he used to be. So maybe in the future I might be looking for a different kicker. But
5% drop in the last day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. And then I'll easily take that Baltimore defense going against Arizona. I mean, no brainer there. So.
Yep. All right, we'll go look at Nate's team. Levy on a prayer.
Yep.
6 points already from Christian McCaffrey.
Oh wow! I thought
we got a couple guys.
3 points from McCaffrey.
Playing.
Yeah, okay. No, it's going on. It got delayed like in the middle of the game.
I thought it never
started.
Yeah.
With it was like 9 minutes or 9 minutes left in the first quarter, I think.
Yeah.
When it got
Carolina
delayed.
just turned it over on downs.
Yeah, well, I think they were reviewing it because
they reviewed it and they
stretched out. And...
Yeah, they reviewed
it.
They said the call stood, so the Bucs are on offense right now.
I was gonna say they better come up with the decision being on the delay. Like, let's not fart around.
Get back to the delay. We still don't know. Taking longer than NBA refs.
Massive underdog, Nate. Like,
yeah.
But...
Yeah. Why is it projecting me?
Do you have like a
something seems wrong right there?
Yeah. I think it's acting like
the game's over.
And Christian McCaffrey aren't gonna finish their game.
Oh yeah.
That's the only reason I can see it dropping.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, well, they're about to restart playing here in a second anyway.
Okay,
so.
good.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, so that's
So it's really supposed to be 135
to
140.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got those two guys tonight. McCaffrey was huge last week. Hopefully you had him in your roster because he got a nice 42 points for me last week. Hoping to have a similar output this week. Going back up the lineup, I got Phillip Rivers, who kind of shaky fantasy-wise, but I think he should put up at least his projected this week versus Detroit, projected 18 points. Then we got Stephon Diggs. He kind of had a down week last week. He only had, I believe, 5 points. 5.7 right there.
Minnesota's offense didn't do a whole lot last week because I know Thielen only had like 10 points too, so it's kind of odd.
Yeah,
Dalvin Cook.
I know Dalvin Cook went off. Kirk Cousins didn't throw the ball too much, so hopefully they get a little more balanced out for. Yeah, for Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen's sake. So hopefully he sees some more targets this week. Le'Veon Bell is questionable with a shoulder injury. The MRI came back negative. Yeah, negative. So he should play Monday night. Hopefully he's not limited by it. Because I know he's a great PPR player, and especially with
Darnold being out.
Yeah, without Darnold, hopefully he should get a lot of carries, and I could see him getting 8 to 10 catches just because they're gonna be having to throw short and check down stuff with Simeon coming in. So hopefully he should get some good volume this week at least. And then got Greg Kittle, obviously a tight end you want to start every week. one of the big time players kind of coming into this year for fantasy. I've got James White as my flex. I think the Pats offense as a whole should have a great game versus Miami, and he should benefit from being a part of that. And then Matt Prater had a solid output last week, 11 points. I would take that any week for my kicker. And then Cleveland's defense, I'm rolling with them again this week. Playing the Jets, which is kind of counterintuitive with Le'Veon Bell as my running back, but I think he can have a great game with the Jets still not scoring very much as a function of his PPR points. Hopefully, he gets a lot of catches, not necessarily a lot of touchdowns, and the points kind of even out that way. But I'm rolling with Cleveland again this week after a down week, week 1 versus the Titans. So hopefully they can put up some better than 0 points this week for me.
I think if you refresh the page, it should update his projections now because they're going again.
Yeah.
Also, Godwin just got a catch.
There we go. Oh, nice. Making points as we speak.
Oh, wow.
Now that's a little bit
Godwin's got 6 points
better
already.
projection there. Be a close
All right,
one.
well,
there you go. There, that's better.
Yeah.
Yep.
There it is.
All right, guys. Well, this is a fun show here. You know, a lot of my picks were with my heart, with my gut. So I definitely have the chance to make up a lot of ground in the standings, but who knows? The college picks I had were probably safer. And but with that being said, guys, enjoy the rest of your day, and I look forward to sharing the news of what happens, because we're gonna see. We had a lot of differences this week, so it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be a good Monday show. Or Tuesday.
Well, coming out on Tuesday.
Yeah, come out on Tuesday. So that will be entertaining. And yeah, so have a good day, everybody.
Bye.
See ya.
For Eric, peace.
Oops, I didn't mean to leave the call there.